Thank you very much. And welcome to Inklings. Any first-timers here tonight? The Inklings room. Yeah, thank you for being here. I see a few of my Pleasanton Middle School students. That's fun. Yay, I'm glad you're here. So the questions were, where's this band from? And in general, Livermore, but it's been going now for 12 years, 13 years. I inherited it after it was started at East Avenue Middle School by some parents, and after about 6 months, they just needed somebody to direct it. So it's been going on for quite a while, and so it started initially like as middle schoolers, and then obviously they got older, which is a good thing. So then it was high school and middle school playing, and then I branched out to, there were, at various years and formations, we've had just a combo, other times a full big band, even a little bit bigger than this. And now it's got one middle schooler, Dylan, and I have a number of players here that I'm happy to say they haven't wanted to leave. So I have some college kids who have stayed local and they're still playing, and so I'm just thrilled to have. Can you raise your hand if you're at the college age? And the bulk of the band is Livermore High School, and Debbie is helping me out tonight on bass, and she goes to Amador. So every year this band has a different formation, and who knows what next year will bring, but hopefully a lot of these same faces. So last year we rehearsed one night a week, so it's not a huge rehearsal schedule for these guys. I wish we had more time, but since so many of them have been in the band for quite a long time, that we have, must have 50 songs in this book that we cycle through. So we're going to play we'll see. We're going to play until about 10 after 7. We'll see how many songs that is tonight, but I like to feature as many people as I can. Speaking of that, we're going to feature MJ on the Barry sax. This is called Barry, Barry Good. just as usual, we do have a tip jar. I'm going to pay these fine musicians this evening for their efforts. After I take the management fee, booking fee, director fee, so that it takes about 75% of whatever comes in, and then we split it up. I want them to get a realistic view of the music business. And, if they all can walk away with $4 for, Anyway, yeah, I'm going to split this up tonight, so I'm sure they would be thrilled to have anything you could throw in the tip jar. We're going to, did any of you watch the video I attached to the email? I sent an email to a few people. So that was a song I wrote maybe 2 years ago called Chink in the Armor, and we went in the studio last year, and most of these kids were on that video. So I thought it was a nice experience for them to go and play with headphones and overdub the song. Anyhow, this is Chink in the Armor. We're going to hear from Chris on trumpet, Joey on the trombone, and William on the guitar. And me on guiro. One, Chris, Joey, Win. 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, and we are going to feature Dylan Tam, the sole middle schooler in the group, on a song called Dream. This was by Johnny Mercer in 1944, and it was written as a theme for his radio program. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The first song we played was called Count Bubba, and that was by Gordon Goodwin. I think I've announced them since then, so we're good. Anyway, this is Dream, something I arranged for a band that I worked with in LA, so it's been a little while. This is Dream. Dylan, this next one is, thank you so much. It's an old standard called Georgia. This is from 1930, Hoagie Carmichael. Made famous by Ray Charles, who was a Georgia native. He recorded this in 1960. Here we go. Georgia. We're going to hear from Anderson Schwer. That was Anderson Schwer. We're going to bring up a member that just started this year. This is Riley Rapp, and Riley's going to sing. Now, I'm not sure where to put her at this point, but how about play all of these? So, All of Me, this was 1931. Seymour Simmons song made famous by the Paul Whiteman Orchestra. Anybody ever hear of Paul Whiteman? Oh, yeah. Well, this is All of Me, Riley Rapp.
Without you, take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? Eyes that cry, how can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me?
Riley Rapp. This next tune is written by Jeff Jarvis, and it's called Honk. We're going to hear from Zach on the trombone, MJ on the sax, William on the guitar, and Dylan on the piano. Thank you very much. We're going to hear from Chris Chavez on the trumpet. This is Bye Bye Blackbird, 1926 Ray Henderson tune. Became number 16 top hit that year in 1926. Let me see if you remember any of these versions. Joe Cocker recorded it in 1968. Anybody? Yeah? How about Ringo Starr in 1970? How about Liza Minnelli, 1972? Yeah, kind of. Yeah. How about 2012, Paul McCartney? Yeah. Do you actually remember all these? Kind of. Okay. Probably my favorite was Miles Davis in 1957. Had a nice hit on that. And let's not forget 1996, Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim.
Almost, yeah, can't forget that one. Okay, you won't forget Chris Chavez on Bye Bye Blackbird. How about that, Chris Chavez? Okay, we're going to do a ballad. It's called But Beautiful. This was a 1947 Jimmy Van Heusen tune. Do you remember there were movies in the 40s called these road movies with Bing Crosby and right? So this was debuted in Road to Rio, and it was sung by Bing Crosby. And then in 1948, Frank Sinatra had a hit with this. This is But Beautiful. We're going to hear a bit from Dylan Tam on this one. we're going to bring up Riley again. And this is a 1939 Jimmy Van Heusen song called I Thought About You. Everybody good? Here we go. Oh, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3,
about you. 2 or 3 cars parked under the stars, a winding street. Moon shining down on some little town, like a beach beat, the same old dream. At every stop that we made, oh, I thought about you. But when I pulled down the shade, then I really felt blue. Try, oh, I'm going back to you. And what did I do? I thought about
Riley Rupp. This next song is by Mike Dana. It's called El Mercader de Groove. Something close to that. It's basically The Groove Merchant, written by Jerome Richardson, and but kind of redone. So, okay, we're gonna hear from MJ and William and Dylan on The Groove Merchant. You got first one. One and two. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to play two more songs for you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You're probably wondering the name of this band, Element 116. I'm sure you, if you're following your physics, you know that it's an element, and it's the 116th element, and they created it out at Lawrence, Livermore. So it actually got named after our fine city of Livermore. There's also Berkeleyum, and there are a couple of other cities that ended up with elements. I'm sure Anderson could tell you how long it lasts. That element lasts probably like a nanosecond or something. Requires basically the power of a nuclear weapon to, fuse it, whatever. It's not that practical. It's not like it's going to end up on your dinner table. Although I hear it tastes like chicken, but whatever. I inherited that name. I didn't quite understand it, except that the parents that started the band worked at the lab, and so there you go, Element 116. And I've become quite fond of the name ever since. And we're going to play a movie theme here. This is Pixar, I think, called Monsters, Inc. So this is from 2001. Randy Newman wrote this song. Does anybody remember if you followed Louis Armstrong, he did a song called Rockin' Chair. Anybody remember that song? It's a famous version there's a video of it with Jack Teagarden. They used to do that in the 60s. Anyway, they just blatantly stole that song. So, and then just did it a lot faster. But it's a nice movie, and it's a nice song. So this is Monsters, Inc. And we're going to hear from Joey on the trombone and William on the guitar. So we're going to end our evening here featuring Wyatt Smith on Sing, Sing, Sing. This was a song written in 1936 by Louis Prima, but I think the most famous version was by Benny Goodman. He recorded it in 1937, and then in 1938 kind of led the swing era, led into that with his Carnegie Hall concert in 1938. And it featured Gene Krupa on the drums. So we got Wyatt Smith doing it up here. Want to thank all the volunteers for making this place festive every time with all these posters. Always looks great. And Nathan and Zelda for keeping it rolling here at Inklings. Also want to say goodbye to Isabella, who has been playing in here for a year or so. This is her last concert with us. We're going to miss her. Tenor sax. But just when people think they've left the band, I pull them back in. And like William, who just can't seem to get away from me. He goes to UC Berkeley now, and I still drag him out here tonight, you know, and actually saved the day because I'd gotten myself very organized with all my cables, my mic cables, my quarter-inch cables, my power cables and everything. So I have 4 bags of stuff to like for the PA and everything, and I brought 3 of them, and so I panic called William as he was driving over here to go back to my studio and dig around and find the bag of power cables. Otherwise, it would have been really soft tonight. Yeah. Thank you again for being here. This is Sing, Sing, Sing. thank you very much, and hope to see you in December for another concert.